This is the year in review for 2024. I'm recording this on the 29th of December, so it's pretty much the end of the year, for me at least. And some of the projects, migrations in particular, that I've done this year, I have basically made a full time switch over to Linux for all of my personal computers. And I am using Arch, by the way. And it's just been working out really well for me. Of course, there are some issues, but it's nothing that I couldn't solve. So it's been working great. I still have a few personal computers that are still running Windows, just because I do support and things like that, and I just have to have Windows so I can, walk people through. And there are some stuff for work in particular that runs only on Windows, so I have to keep Windows for that. All my servers run Debian. Has been for a long time, since Debian 11 actually, and switched away from Ubuntu back in back when the last version of Ubuntu that I used for servers was 18.04 LTS. As for my workstations, like computers that I use for work, I'm running Pop OS for all of those, and that's also been working out really well. The reason why I'm using Pop just because I need something that's a little bit more stable than Arch and stuff like that. So, and Pop has been really, really well. In fact, I actually recommend Pop OS now. I actually recommend Pop OS now to people who are interested in Linux and, just need like a beginner distro over Ubuntu because it's just better. And, you know, screw Ubuntu. As for my migration away from Google services, I have started. I have well, not started. I have completed my transition from Gmail over to Proton Mail, and specifically, I'm using Proton Unlimited, this plan, and I actually paid for the entire year. So that's been working really well. I've been using my own personal domain for this as well, and haven't had any issues. I actually have forwarding rules set for Gmail so that all the email in my Gmail gets forwarded to my Proton Mail now. Just so that if there's any services I forgot about or whatever, it still gets forwarded over to me. Then I can make the transition. That has gone. It took a long time. It took several months to make the full transition, just because email is just it's used in everything. So it took me a while to get everything transitioned over. There are a few things that I keep on Gmail. For example, my YouTube account, I just keep it on Gmail just because why not? Um, Other than that, everything else been pretty good. So the reason why I chose Proton Mail over, Fastmail or any other ones that I looked into is because it offered at the time. I don't know if it's still true now. I basically started transition at the beginning of the year. It offered a lot more bang for the buck. Basically, it supports up to 3 custom email domains. I'm using 2 of my own personal domains. One that's just kind of just for spam and stuff like aliases and stuff like that. It does come with a aliasing service, but I don't use it. I just use my own personal domain. It also has VPN, but I don't use that either. I've been on Molvad for the longest time, so I literally just use Proton for just the mail. That's it. As for Google Authenticator, I've switched away from Google Authenticator. I'm now using 2FAS. This is an open source project. It works great. It's a little bit more polished than the other ones that I was looking at the time. Again, I made this transition back in the beginning of the year, so I don't know if that's changed now. But at the time, this one looked really good. It's open source. All the source code for both the Android and the iOS and the browsers, everything is open source and available here. Works really well for me. Does everything that Google Authenticator does, except for syncing, which I don't care. That one's been working really well for me. The transition away from Google Drive is pretty much 100% complete now. Next on the list was the transitioning away from Google Drive. That's been in progress for a long time. It's pretty much complete now. I've switched over to Nextcloud, basically, and obviously I get more storage for less than it costs to get it from Google. It works, does what I need it to do. Easy to share files. I also switched over to it for my calendar needs. This syncs directly to my phone, and again, it just does everything I need it to do. Nothing special there. And for me, the reason I'm switching away from Google services is not so much for privacy or whatever, although that's a plus. The main reason is just because I don't trust Google to not one day decide, hey, you did something wrong with your account or something. That's all automated and lock me out of everything. So I'd rather not have all my eggs in one basket. That's the reason why I'm moving away from Google services. Next up on the migration list was away from Adobe products. So I've switched from Adobe Premiere over to Kdenlive. Yes, I know DaVinci Resolve, but I wanted to use open source software as much as I can. So Kdenlive, it does everything I needed to do. I'm not that heavy into editing, as you could probably see from my videos. It does everything I need, does the job, works well. End of story. As part of the migration away from Adobe products, of course, is from Photoshop over to the GIMP, which actually I don't really use at all. I actually haven't used it at all this year. I actually been using Krita instead, and Krita has been perfectly fine as a Photoshop replacement for me. I don't really use Photoshop all that much anymore, since I don't really do photography that much anymore. And Krita it does what I need it to do for basic resizing, basic edits, stuff like that. So that's fine. And then as for Lightroom, actually, I don't have it installed on this computer, but for Lightroom, I actually replace it with Darktable. So the next thing is text editor. I've been using Sublime Text for the longest time, since version 2, and I actually have a paid license. I don't have it licensed on this computer, but I do have a paid license. I love it. It's great. It has really good syntax highlighting and all that stuff, but I am trying to transition as much as I can to open source software. I am still going to use Sublime Text because it's a great editor. I love it. But I have been looking into Kate, which is basically more or less does what Sublime Text does with a little bit of extra capabilities as well. Of course, you can do the same thing with Sublime Text with plugins and stuff like that. Of course, Kate is open source. It's part of the KDE project, and it's been working well. I don't have any complaints really so far, other than the highlighting is not that great compared to Sublime Text, but that's more of a personal preference type of thing. This year, I ended up running a whole bunch of new services that I've never ran before. Of course, I also did a bunch of stuff that I have done before, which is Jellyfin was my primary service that I ran long before this year, but that continues to be the case this year. But the new thing that I've been running and pretty much use every single day is Fresh RSS, which has been really good. Mainly for me, it's just aggregates all my news and everything into one area. You can just quickly look at it. Also, because YouTube being YouTube, has been basically ghosting some of the content creators, and so it doesn't show up in my feed, even in the actual subscription feed. So I add the channels to a Fresh RSS, and then it just pulls it whenever there's a new video. So of course, Home Assistant has been really, really nice. I finally got around to setting up Home Assistant. It's become a daily part of my life now. I have a lot of automations using smart plugs that I've had from before. Casa smart plugs, but also I'm moving to cough plugs now, which have been really nice. The cough plugs are really nice because they run ESP Home. I have my cameras tied into Home Assistant. I also got these Xiaomi, Bluetooth sensors. Super cheap. They're like $5 each, and they're Bluetooth only, but I have ESP32 boards that I just turn into Bluetooth proxies, and I can put them anywhere in the house and still have it connect to Home Assistant. It's really nice. I also have my EcoFlow units connected to Home Assistant, the Tesla wall connector, all of it really nice. So here's a quick view of my Home Assistant dashboard. I have all my smart plugs here. I have automations. It looks like my garage opener is unavailable. But yeah, it's become a daily part of my life. Here I have sensors, my weather stations, my air sensors, all of that. Cameras I'm not going to show. Other services that have been really useful for me throughout the years, of course, has been Sterling PDF. With my move away from Adobe products, Sterling PDF has been really nice. I also been using another one is MeTube, which is basically a front end for UTDLP, and it's been great. Just for quick, saving videos really quickly, something like that. Just paste in the URL, hit add, and you're done. Really nice. Other services like PairDrop, which I've been running for a long time already, not used that much this year. I've mostly switched away from it to using Local Send now. It seems to be a little bit better-ish, faster, in my opinion. There's also, I have Code Server now, which is, I actually haven't used it at all, but I just added it just because it was so easy to set up. And it's nice if I ever need to edit code or something, and I don't have my code editor with me, I guess. URL shortener, I use the URLs shortener. That one works fine. I've been running that for many years now. But change detection, I actually use that to keep an eye on my own sites and my own stuff, just in case something changes and it needs my attention. So I don't actually use it for monitoring prices or whatever. IT tools, really useful. I've been using CyberChef for the longest time. IT tool seems to fit me a little bit better because it just has all the stuff that I need. Some of the things that are really nice. Here's IT tools. The thing that I use a lot, and it might not be the same for a lot of other people, but is the YAML to JSON converter and the JSON to YAML converter. So you can just paste in, some YAML. It'll give you JSON on the other side, and then of course vice versa. Okay, next up I have Flight Radar 24. I feed ADSB data to them. I've been doing it for many years now. But basically this year I had basically multiple Raspberry Pis. One that fed to Flight Radar 24, one that fed to PiAware, and I basically combined it into one unit that I named it ADSB Feeder, which is just a Raspberry Pi 3, and it feeds to multiple services. I also feed to ADSB Exchange and ADSB Fi, I believe it's called. So that's another thing. Again, this has been something I've been running for many years, except there was just Flight Radar 24 and and FlightAware. So the two new ones were the ADSB Exchange and ADSB Fi. So I'm feeding to 4 different services now. Another service that has been invaluable to me is Notify. I actually have this tied into my Uptime Kuma instance, and that's how I keep track of my services and make sure that my servers are up, things like that. And then if there's an issue, it sends a notification through Notify to my phone. And then just this month, I came across WebTop, and this thing is quickly becoming something that I use on a daily basis now. So basically, it's similar to Chasm workspaces, except that it's doesn't have the restrictions of it, and it works well. Basically, you get your own Linux desktop that runs in the browser, and it's all run through Docker. So this is basically a Docker container running, you know, in this case, it's Arch with the Mate desktop environment. But yeah, this thing has been great. If I wanted to quickly test something out, quickly do something from wherever, I could just load this up. It's just a web interface, and it supports copy and pasting out of the machine, and it just works really well. So now to the new monitoring system that I have set up using Grafana. This is the Grafana dashboard that I have set up right now. This one's monitoring my Jellyfin. And I have Telegraph basically sending system statistics to InfluxDB, and then I have Grafana that just displays it out. It's been working really well. It's pretty much quickly becoming a replacement for Red Queen. Red Queen is basically it's a software that I wrote. It's a system monitoring that I wrote for work. Actually, originally started for work, and then I kind of just kept on improving upon it, and it became my de facto monitoring software. But now I'm switching over to Telegraph and InfluxDB and Grafana. It's just working really well. Finally, another service that I'm really happy about is Media CMS. Basically, it's like a self-hosted YouTube. I needed a way to share some, clips and stuff with friends. In fact, the Love is All Around playthrough videos, I originally shared them to my friends through this. You upload the videos, it does the conversions. It's by itself. Works really well, and that's how I'm sharing, private stuff instead of through YouTube, basically. And then last but not least, for my own personal remote access, of course I have Tailscale, I have NetBird, I also have just regular old WireGuard, but I also have Mesh Central set up, and that's been really nice. If you don't know what Mesh Central is, it's basically it's remote access software that basically gives you like a remote desktop, except through the browser. There's videos on YouTube, you can look at it yourself. But I've been running that for many years now. Still working great, no issues. Well, technically no issues. With the switch to Linux, and of course I'm using Wayland. Mesh Central currently does not support Wayland yet, so that's kind of an issue-ish, but for Linux system, I don't really use, remote desktop anyways, so it's fine. As for the physical part of the homelab, I have pretty much the 2 rack mount servers that I've had before completely retired. I haven't even turned them on at all this year. All the servers I'm using now are basically mini PCs, B-Link, as well as some no-name AliExpress mini PCs. The Intel NUC that I've been using for the longest time is finally on its last legs. It sounds like the fan is about to give out. It's making really loud, noises, and I just turned it off. I haven't used it in a long time anyways. I mean, I still use it. There's others that are better, use less power, more powerful, etc., etc. In addition, I have now added a Synology NAS. It's a DS923 Plus, I believe, is the model number. Synology, I've used it before. We use it at work. It's great. I love DSM. No issues there. It's been running for a long time. Yeah, not much to add, really. Another change is I've been switching over to Proxmox from XCPNG. Not that there's anything against XCPNG. Works well, it's really nice, lots of features, but Proxmox just works better for me. I don't really care about, all the other features that XCPNG offers. Proxmox makes it easy. It also has LXCs, so I haven't used any LXCs yet, but it's there. As for how I deploy my VMs, it's not much has changed. I have templates set up for different sizes of virtual machines. The base is Debian 12, obviously, and then I have Cloud Init that sets up the initial user, the SSH keys for Ansible, and then Ansible takes care of the rest. It's works for me. It works for many years for me already, and nothing's changed there. Another change in terms of the network, I've switched from the Amplify router to a Protectly that's running pfSense. Yes, I know all about OPN Sense. Work uses pfSense. We use Netgate products, so I don't care. It works for me. I was using the Amplify for over a year because my USG failed, and the Amplify was what I had available, so I just used it. Just like everybody else, I've been messing around with AI. I did image generation earlier in the year with Stable Diffusion and automatic 1111 web UI. I know there was Comfy UI is the new, hot stuff right now, but I haven't messed with it since the beginning of the year. But what I have been using quite often lately is actually LLMs, and I'm running Olama and Fabric in order to do summarization for articles, help me take notes. It's just really good. I basically copy. So, for example, I take an article, I copy it, the text. I have an extension. Pasted it into Fabric, and it just spits out a summary for me. It's really good. Basically, from my fresh RSS feed, I take articles that sound interesting. I don't know if it's going to worth my time to read it, so what I do is then I feed it to Fabric, gives me a summary. I read a quick summary and determine whether or not it's worth my time to actually read the whole thing. That's what I've been doing. It's been awesome. This year, I ended up getting into Meshtastic as well, not knowing what Meshtastic really was and what's the use of it. I ended up getting the cheapest thing that I could find, which happens to be this guy. It's a Heltec H1, and found out that it's kind of interesting. So I ended up deciding to get some more notes, and I stumbled upon this guy, which is a MusiWorks, which is the same as this one actually inside. It's just that this one has a nice 3D printed case, and so you can see it also has a better antenna. I got two of these, in fact, and I was carrying these around for a while. It was fine. The antennas were a little long for me to carry around in my pocket, so I decided to get something else, and also something that has a little bit more capabilities. And I ended up with this, the LilyGo T Echo. This one is the one that actually comes with the BME 280. Yes, 280. Temperature, humidity, and pressure sensor. And this one's been working really well. I don't use any of the features that the environment sensors provide, but it has GPS as well. So this has actually been my daily carry. It's easy, fits in my pocket really easily. So this is what I've been using. Then, because why not, I got a T-Deck as well. This one is still running the stock Meshtastic firmware right now. Unfortunately, when I got this, the fancy UI firmware failed its build through the GitHub Actions, so I wasn't able to get a copy of the firmware. But I'm sure at some point I will get the new firmware on there. But this whole Meshtastic journey basically got me back into ham radio. So with the Meshtastic revitalizing my interest in ham radio, I pulled out my old radios, which was the Asus FT2DR and my FT70D, which I kind of left ham radio in 2020 during the lockdowns because I moved from my apartment to another place, and the new place is a radio dead zone. I couldn't hit any of the repeaters, and I didn't have an HF rig, so it's just there was really nothing I can do. So I kind of left the hobby behind. That and being stuck at home, so I couldn't go anywhere. So I lost the programming cables for my Jesus radio, both of them, and but I still had I also had two Baofeng UV5Rs, because who doesn't? And I had to go to HRO and buy new program cables, so that went $30. I also found out that the battery for this guy is bad, as well as the battery for one of the batteries for the FT70 is also going bad. But with that, I ended up, during the Black Friday sale, I picked up two of these guys. These are the Quancheng UVK6, I believe. And the reason I got these are they're really, really hackable radios. So for example, this one I have custom firmware running on it right now, and there's a whole range of there's a whole bunch of different custom firmwares that you can run. Some of them has, for example, spectrum analyzers and a bunch of other stuff. Super hackable radios. These also use the same programming cable as the Baofengs. And I got them on Black Friday for, I think it was $20 each. So I got two of them. And this one, the only modification I made to this is just a custom firmware. That's it. By the way, it doesn't come with this antenna. I just put a stubby antenna on it. But really hackable. What I ended up doing is I went on AliExpress and I bought an HF modification board for this one, and I modded this one. So you have to take the radio apart. You have to know some soldering and stuff like that, but super simple. The board was, I think, about $10 on AliExpress, and you just have to solder a few things to get a few wires and stuff like that in the on the main board, and it gives you much better HF reception. The default radio is kind of deaf. You can make some modifications to the squelch settings. That's you do through the firmware writers software, but it's still pretty bad. But with the HF mod, it becomes a pretty decent radio. It's not going to be the same quality as a Jesus, but for $20 plus like another $10 for the board and like, I don't know, an hour of your time, you can basically get a pretty dang good radio for $30. It's just crazy. I haven't really done much with this. This one's running the same firmware as that guy, but there are better firmware that does HF reception. But this one goes down to 18 megahertz and I believe like 1.2 gigahertz. Also AM receive on all of them and transmit, I believe. So really nice radios. They're really cheap radios, don't get me wrong, but they're really nice as in they're super hackable. I know there's videos of people adding another antenna, so they removed the LED from here and putting another antenna connection, so you can have one for UHF, VHF, and then another for HF. So really nice radios. I'm planning to do some more with these guys. So probably get a digi-rig and get into some digital modes. I also want to get into Wires X and Asus System Fusion. I had already bought a hotspot, and I just got to set it up and all that, a Pi-Star hotspot. So gonna play around with that. Also, I already got the parts. I'm gonna build an All-Star node as well. So that's what's in the plan for the ham radio stuff. I got my ticket in 2019. Might have been 2018. I got my amateur extra in 2019 for sure though. So I got out of ham radio because I was in a dead spot that I couldn't hit any repeaters. I don't have an HF rig and all that. But with the hotspot and the All-Star node, I probably can probably do some more stuff. I also have parts for repeater build for the Meshtastic as well. So that's going to be a fun little thing if I ever get to it. With the renewed interest in ham radio, of course, I had to take out my RF kit, and I updated the firmware on the PortaPack to the latest version of the Mayhem firmware. And then I also picked up this guy, which is a Tiny SA Ultra, and because why not, right? So plan to do a lot more RF stuff in the coming year. We'll see where I go with that. Finally, another project that I worked on and something that I hopefully will use more often is the travel server. That's I'll have a video about that later on. As for plans for 2025, right now at least, there's a few things. I want to migrate away from Google Voice. I'm not sure if that's going to be possible. It is free, so, you know. All the other options I've been looking at are paid for, and I don't know if I can justify versus Google. That's Google Voice, which is free. Another thing is, right now I don't have offsite backups. I have local backups, but not offsite. So that's another thing I want to look into, trying to set up somehow, some way. I need to set up Frigate for my cameras. Right now my cameras do not record, which is not great. And then finally looking into either Getty or GitLab to have centralized location for my code. Right now it's all synced by Syncthing to all my computers, and I do use Git still. It's just synced by Syncthing. But I want something centralized. So that's something to look into. Another thing I want to look into is training my own LLM models. I don't know if my computers can handle it. Probably not, but something to look into. And then finally, I haven't done much programming this year at all. I think I want to look into Electron, just because it sounds interesting. I really hate JavaScript, but, it's everywhere. And that's about it. Hope everyone else has a good year, and to another year of learning and doing more random stuff. See ya.